The zombie apocalypse is upon us. You might be infected. No worries though, because zombielips.squarespace.com has sponsored this video. They have the cure. If you've got a case of the dreaded zombie lips or zombie skin, try some of their lip balm or moisturizers that refresh and revitalize your skin. I honestly love the stuff. It's got a soothing taste and scent that almost makes me wish I could be on The Walking Dead myself. Come on, Rick, let me touch that beard. So, to get your own amazing post-apocalyptic skincare, go to zombielips.squarespace.com. Thanks, Zombie Lips. Going to the movies is one of my favorite things to do. Even if I've just feasted and gorged myself on dinner, I always buy popcorn. Even if it's just for the smell. Watching a film in theaters is just unbeatable. But if you've been the first in the room, or the last, you can't help but think about just how truly dark and eerie the place can be. Those red curtains, the shadows that surround you, who or what hides in the dark. Enjoy these allegedly true cinema scary stories, and don't forget to send us your airplane and airport scary stories soon at deathbyfear.com. Number 1. Creepy Movie Patron. Submitted by Bree, NicGarran. When I was in my senior year of high school, I took a part-time job working at the local movie theater. It paid reasonably well, enough for me to have a bit of pocket money, and despite the management's strange stance that high schoolers had nothing better to do in their spare time than work, I really did like the job. My coworkers were nice, I got to watch bits of the latest films during my break time, and I always came home smelling like popcorn. It was also my very first foray into the wild and maddening world of customer service, and as the months passed, I saw more than my fair share of rude, dense, and uncooperative, downright dickish customers. Now, most of them have faded into the background over time, but there was one experience I had that rattled me so badly that I still recall it now. During the run of the movie What Lies Beneath, a ghost story murder mystery movie starring Harrison Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer, I got promoted, so to speak, from concessions to box office. So I was learning how to work the computer and sell tickets. There was no monetary raise involved. The additional training just meant that the management could swap people around to cover different jobs as needed. One particular evening, as I was working the box office, a man came in to see a movie. He was on the tall side and that vague sort of pudgy that looks more broad than fat. I smiled, and I launched right into my typical greeting. "Hi, welcome to the theater. How can I help you?" "Yeah, I'll take one ticket for Lie Beneath Me." Mind you, at this point, I'd heard the movie misnamed a few times, but there was something about the way he said it, the way he leaned forward and stared directly at me, that made me vaguely uncomfortable. I couldn't put my finger on it exactly, but it didn't seem like an appropriate sort of look for a grown man to be giving a 17-year-old girl. Nonetheless, I maintained my customer service mask, and I pretended I hadn't heard the slip-up, and I handed him his ticket. "Here you go, sir. Enjoy the show." "You want to come watch it with me?" he says to me, still with that stare and an odd smile on his face, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I was starting to wish my trainer was in the box with me, but I was too short to look over to the concessions counter to see if anyone was there to intervene just in case. The only thing I could do was keep up the charade and hope for the best. "Sorry, no can do, sir. I have to stay here and sell tickets. You enjoy the movie, though." He stared at me for a few unending seconds, then plodded off toward the concessions counter. I let out a breath and composed myself, and then I put the smile back on to greet the next customer in line. A couple of hours later, the strange incident is almost forgotten. Almost. I swapped out with a coworker who was going on break and needed someone to cover the ushering for a couple of shows that were about to end, including the Ford Pfeiffer flick. Grateful for the break from constant smiling, I grabbed a broom and pickup, and I went to go sweep the aisles and remove trash and spilled popcorn. Let me tell you, something about being in a movie theater turns even the most fastidious people into complete slobs. I swear it's a sickness. I entered the theater as the last guests were leaving, while the end credits rolled. As I was picking up trash in the forward section, minding my own business, who should I spy but Mr. Creepy from the box office before? And his eyes were fixed directly on me once again. I'd never been leered at so openly in my entire young life, and I wanted to bolt for the door right there, but I had a job to do. So I kept my head down, and I just hoped that he would leave with the rest of the patrons, but there was no such luck. As I was dumping a load of spilled popcorn into the garbage bin, I heard footsteps behind me, and then a voice far too close for comfort or manners, said, "Too bad you weren't here. I was the only one in the back row. We could have had some fun." One of his hands was fumbling deep in his pocket of his khakis, and he was breathing hard and staring at me. I gripped my broom and tried to subtly edge away. He moved to block me. My heart jumped in my throat and lodged there. The theater was now empty, and as far as I knew, I was the only one ushering for that show. I was too young and too scared to know what to say or do to get myself out of that situation. Nothing in our employee orientation had mentioned anything about what to do if you got trapped in a theater with a creepy customer. All I could think was, if he comes any closer, I'll just jab him in the crotch with my broom and run like hell. Fortunately, at that very moment, a couple of other employees walked into the theater to help with the cleanup. Mr. Creepy yanked his hand out of his pocket and booked it down the steps, then exited via the fire exit at the front of the theater. I was shaking, but I was otherwise unharmed. I didn't know what to say or how to describe what had just happened, so I said nothing and went back to concessions for the rest of my shift as soon as I was able. Being around half a dozen other people and the watchful eyes of the office security cameras made me feel a little bit better. When my shift ended, I grabbed my hoodie, put my hood up against the light rain that was starting to come down, and I walked outside into the nearly empty parking lot. I had no car of my own yet, so my mother came to pick me up when I was done for the night. And just like clockwork, she was there in the side parking lot just beside the entrance. I waved my goodbye to some coworkers who were also leaving at the same time. And then I froze. Halfway down one of the aisles, sitting at the wheel of a large dark-colored SUV, was Mr. Creepy again. And he was craning his neck like he was looking for someone. Without waiting to see more, I booked it over to my mother's car, hoping my hood had hidden my face so that he didn't know it was me. As we pulled out of the parking lot and headed for home, I saw him still sitting there, watching the doors of the theater, as if he was waiting for some unsuspecting young girl to come out. I saw this man a few more times during my tenure at the theater, but I always managed to duck into the storeroom or the break room or even the ladies' toilets before he noticed me. So thankfully for me, Mr. Creepy and I never met again. Number 2. The B-Side Hallway. Submitted by Brook. I was hired on at a movie theater when I turned 16 years old, and I was beyond excited to finally be earning my own money. Besides, I got free benefits like free movie posters and even free movies. My first day was opening night of Captain America: Civil War. It was of course busy, and I already knew just how much work I had gotten myself into. I was ushering, which meant cleaning all the theaters once everyone had left. It was hectic. Most theaters broke within the same 12 minutes, and they were all packed. I had someone with me training me. They chatted me up while we cleaned, showing me which soaps and mops to use in the theater. My theater was divided into 2 sections, A side and B side. A side is on the left when you walk in and has theaters 1 through 6, while B side is on the right, with theaters 1 through 7. Soon our biggest theater, 7, broke. People poured out from the hallway, leaving behind huge amounts of spilled popcorn and drinks, among other things. Me and my trainer set to work as quickly as we could before the next show was supposed to start. Somehow, ever so casually, my trainer mentioned that someone had died in the theater years ago, back in the early 2000s. We live in Florida, in a very old people populated area, so when she said a man had died of a heart attack in Theater 8, I kind of believed her. Besides, over the course of my time working at that theater, I would come to know that many strange and unfortunate injuries would take place there, almost every day. My trainer changed the topic quickly, and the night proceeded on as usual. Everything was going fine. I got off at 11, went home, ate, and went to bed. Eventually, the time came for me to start ushering alone. Everything went fine for the first few hours of my shift. But when it came time to start cleaning B-side, strange things began to happen. I'd set my porter down to mop the floor, and it would disappear and wind up out in the lobby somewhere. I'd be walking down the steps and feel someone's hands on my back, and on one occasion, I felt those same hands shove me forcefully down the steps. I have countless scars on my arms from the amount of rug burn I got from falling onto the floor. Still, I just accounted this as me being my clumsy self, though I couldn't really explain away the feeling of someone else's hands on my body. That felt too real to be made up. Even weirder though, in Theater 8, I would often hear the sound of something dripping, and the emergency door would just open on its own. And yes, the ear-splitting alarm would soon sound. It got to the point where I refused to clean that theater by myself. Then it happened, opening weekend of Star Wars. My friend Ashley and I were cleaning Theater 7. I was changing the trash in the hallway when I saw Ashley staring at me from the first row. "What?" I asked, turning around. And that's when I noticed it wasn't Ashley. It was a tall, hooded figure, just staring at me, all the way from the front row of the theater. I yelled for Ashley and heard her respond from the very top of the huge theater. After that, we both decided to clean as quickly as possible to just get it over with. I was terrified and overcome with a feeling of panic. Before we left, we saw a man standing in the projection booth. We asked the manager who was up there, and he said himself that only he had access to it, and he hadn't been up there yet. They let me off early that night, thank God, and in the elevator going upstairs, I felt uneasy. I began to walk the long, turning corridor to the employee room, and I heard footsteps squeaking on the floor right behind me. I turned around to see who was following me, but there was no one there. So I picked up speed, and so did they. I sprinted to the computer, clocked out, and I was glad to be out of there when I exited the building. When I finally got trained in box office, I was more than glad to not have to usher anymore. That was until I got a phone call. "Hello?" I asked cheerfully. A woman on the other end asked me if the movie she was going to see would be playing in Theater 7. "No, why?" I responded after checking the plan for the night. "Because," she explained, "the last time I was in there, something tried to push me down the stairs." I've worked here for about a year now, and that same woman always calls before she comes to see a movie. She has to make sure that it's not playing in Theater 7. Number 3. Women at the Cinema. Submitted by Riley G. This story took place a while ago, when Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was in theaters. My friend, let's call her Kate, invited me to go see it because her family didn't want to. I told her sure, and I said I'll pick her up around 1:40 to see the 2:20 show. When we got there, the line wasn't too bad, since the movie had already been in theaters for a while. In front of us, there were two heavier women, and they kept glaring at Kate and I. It was kinda weird and a bit annoying, but I tried to ignore it so I could enjoy the movie. Turns out that they were also going in to see the same movie in the same theater. So I just thought as long as they don't sit near us, it'll be all good, and I won't have to see them again. Kate and I found some nice seats, not too close and not too far away. And of course, guess who decided to sit no more than 3 seats away from us? When those women sat down, their conversation took a rather dark turn. Why do the skinny sluts always get the good men? one of them said. The other replied, "Wouldn't it be nice if all these anorexic girls just died?" "Definitely," the other said. "Probably wouldn't take much to break those skinny necks." It was off-putting, and we haven't done anything to these girls at all. They went on and on before the movie started about their hatred for smaller women. Now, Kate has struggled with weight issues in the past. She was bullied for being overweight in elementary school, only to be bullied for being too skinny while we were in high school. Needless to say, she was kind of uncomfortable and a little freaked out. I assured her I would try and protect her if they tried anything stupid. About halfway through the movie, Kate had to use the washroom, so she got up and left. And right after she got up, one of those pudgy women got up right after her and followed her. I looked over, feeling a bit uneasy, and that woman's friend must have seen me glancing over with a little worry on my face, and she said with a quiet and creepy smile, "What they do in the bathroom is none of your business, so don't even worry about it." After another minute or so, Kate finally came back with an uneasy look on her face. The movie ended with no incident. Once it's over, Kate explains to me what happened in the washroom. One of the larger women walked into the washroom behind her and just glared her down when she was washing her hands. Then when she tried to exit the bathroom, the woman stood in the way of the door and would not move for her when Kate asked her to. And as Kate approached to squeeze by her, the woman seemed to threaten her. "I could kill you in a heartbeat. You wouldn't even feel it." Kate then lunged herself at the door, between the small opening of the woman and the wall. She managed to squeeze through, and the woman didn't do anything, luckily enough. Freakier yet, when we were walking out to the parking lot to find our car, those two women followed us. They weren't even trying to hide the fact that they were following us. They were only a few feet behind us the whole time. Instead of confronting these women, who basically threatened us multiple times, we ran to our car as fast as we could, and we hopped inside, locking the doors immediately. But I think the scariest part, the part that I really honestly didn't expect, was that as soon as we locked the doors, they were outside the car, trying to open the doors. What were they trying to do? What if I hadn't locked it in time? We floored it into reverse. I didn't care at this point if I hit those two, and I drove well over the speed limit to drop Kate off at her house. Ever since then, we haven't gone back to that theater. We don't want to risk running into those creepy women ever again. Number 4. Creepy Man at the Movies. Submitted by Flo. This happened about 2 years ago. My friend Mads and I were having a fun day at the mall together. There was a new horror movie out. Since horror movies are our kind of thing, we decided we would go see it. As we were headed inside the movie theater, we noticed that there was a Hispanic-looking man sitting on one of those black chairs where you can pay and it would massage you. He seemed to be on the phone with someone. Even still, he was intensely staring at my friend Mads. Mads was very, very blonde. You could see her from a mile away. She stuck out like a sore thumb, so usually when people look, they're probably just looking at her bright-colored hair. It was so bright that people often asked if she dyed or bleached it, but it was naturally that blonde. So again, I just assumed that he was surprised by her hair color. But as we got closer as to walk past, I saw that he wasn't looking at her head. He was looking at her rear. I rolled my eyes and told Mads to just ignore the guy. So we walked in and waited in line to get tickets. And soon enough, we sparked up conversation about our favorite bands. We were so distracted by our conversation that we didn't see that the man from before had gotten up from his chair and was now directly in line behind us. And before I finally noticed, I had said something stupid. I had spoken out loud, being excited to see the movie, that I was scared to watch it. So he must have heard me say the title of the movie out loud. And as soon as I saw that man standing behind us, I realized just how tall he was, tall and thin, and I swallowed hard, hoping that he hadn't heard what movie we were going to, or maybe he really was just a normal guy and was going to see something else. We finally get our tickets, so we sat down on one of the tables after getting popcorn, and we wait there until we're allowed to enter. While sitting down, I noticed the same guy in the corner. He was eating popcorn as well, and he's literally just staring at us. His eyes don't move from the two of us, and we're both starting to get freaked out. But we have our tickets, and we don't want to waste the money, and I was in denial. Maybe the guy was a little weird, and that was all. But these were warning signs, and I shouldn't have ignored them. Anyway, once we get in the theater, we sit almost at the top, and this same guy sits directly behind us, the creepy dude. My friend tells me to move down, so we do. But the man just gets up at the same time and sits one seat behind us again. People were already crowding in, and we didn't see a spot close enough to move to. When the movie began, Mads leaned into me to whisper, "He's just staring at me." I turned and looked at the man, meaning to say something to him to get him to back off. But the moment I saw that creepy smile, it crushed all the confidence I had, so I just turned around and tried to focus on the movie. It was difficult though, knowing that that creepy man was looking at us, not the movie, and he was so close. "Let's go to the bathroom," Mads said. I nodded and I took all our stuff with us. When we got into the bathroom, immediately both of us had the same ideas, that we shouldn't go back, that we should just leave the theater. And then suddenly, moments after we walked in, we heard someone walking past the bathroom. And they walked past over and over, as if they were waiting. I knew it was him, and then I heard him talking to somebody. I don't know where they went, in Spanish. I told Mads what he said, and we both began to freak out. Now that I look back, we should have told someone, but I guess we didn't want to make a scene. Instead, we gathered the courage to switch movies. I know we shouldn't have, but we wanted to make a clean break from this guy. So while he wasn't looking, we snuck into the nearest other theater room and watched some kids' movie. Once that was over, we went back to the mall area, right by the exit doors to wait for my mother. We honestly thought we had lost the man. We hadn't seen him since we dodged him at the theater. But while we were waiting for my mom to pick us up, I saw him in the mall behind us. He was staring directly at me, and he looked like he was power walking. Slowly his expression seemed to turn to one of anger, and I was scared for my life. My phone then vibrated. It was a text from my mom. She was just outside. The two of us took off in a full sprint, and we ran and locked ourselves inside of my mom's car. My mom looked weirded out, but she took off for home all the same. Later on, we told her what had happened, and she was angry with us. She said we should have called the cops, or at least called her, that was a dire situation, and ever since then, she's been a little bit afraid to let us go back to that mall. I don't blame her. So to the creepy dude at the movies, let's not meet again. And number 5, the crazy person at the movies. Submitted by Sam D. This event happened to me and my family a few years ago. I think the image of it will always stay very clear in my mind. It was sometime in 2013. Me and my family lived in Texas in a town known as Beeville. We lived very close to a very small movie theater. It was probably just a 10-minute walk from where we lived. We used to walk there frequently, in fact, but after this incident, we moved to a totally different state. From all that I remember, it was a Friday night. We walked together on the road to the theater, as we always did. We arrived just as usual. We got some snacks and we went inside the theater room and sat down. At that moment, there were about 3 other people in the theater with us, each sitting a few chairs away. As we patiently waited for the movie to start, my family passed the time by having conversations and playing little games, while of course eating our snacks. Suddenly, there was a loud crash and a chilling scream. It sounded like it was coming from the snack bar. My little sister whispered to me, "What was that?" I replied something along the lines of, "Probably someone got hurt." A few minutes into the movie, another loud crash suddenly came from the snack bar, except it sounded closer to our movie theater. My parents were whispering, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. Probably halfway through the movie, a man comes through the door talking softly to himself, but it's still loud enough to make everyone's head turn in confusion. My sister whispers in my ear, telling me how funny the guy looks, but I just ignore her. I turn my head towards my parents and see them looking at the movie, so I just relax and watch. A few seconds later, the man starts clapping and laughing, staring at the wall. My sister and I thought this was funny at the time, and we both silently stared at each other and laughed. After what happened next, our grins soon faded. The man began giggling and stared at one of the people sitting in the room, and I clearly remember the man saying out loud, "I'm going to kill all of you tonight," in the most disturbing voice I have ever heard. He started to scream and shriek. Then he ran at the person he was looking at. The person attempted to run, but they failed to do so and was rammed into by the crazy man. My little sister started to cry, and my parents tried to slowly walk to the exit, gesturing us to follow. I started to panic, and honestly, I was crying. I remember looking back at the disturbing sight of the person screaming as the man began to bite his face. The rest of the people in the theater ran for the exit, making loud footsteps. The crazy man then looked back in their direction and ran, which happened to be our direction too. As we ran out of the theater, we heard the disturbing shrieking from the crazy man coming closer. Out in the lobby, we see two employees crouching behind the snack bar. One of them has bandages on his arm, and I could see blood seeping through, and the other's on the phone with what must have been the police. We ran down the road out of the theater and ran to the nearest place with people downtown. As we ran, we saw police race by us. Even still, as soon as we saw the police station, we ran inside and made a report. It was insane. That guy was trying to kill people. I don't know what was wrong with him. Maybe he was on drugs or something. But I'm so glad that he didn't get to attack us. To this day, me and my family still remember what happened that Friday night, and we're grateful we got out of there with our lives. What scares me even more was the fact that I never heard anything come from this incident, meaning that this man is still at large. How could the police not catch someone who's so crazy? Hey beautiful people, thanks for watching. This outro is different today because I'm in the middle of a big move, so I just wanted to say I love you all and I hope you like and share this video. More videos are on the way, as well as some awesome new t-shirts. Have a great weekend and I'll see you soon. Good night.